Welcome to our workforce development webinar series. We are so excited you're here and back by popular demand. Just when you thought the series had ended last week with our South Carolina Future Makers initiative, we had a lot of requests from our partners to learn more about CTECS, Career and Technical Education Consortium of States. So we're so excited to get started today. My name is Jennifer Kolb, and I'm the Vice President of Business Development at Tallo. And joining me is Ken Potthoff, Deputy Executive Director, and Darren Morris, Instructional Designer, both at CTECS. So over the next 30 minutes, Ken and Darren are going to share more about how the CTECS team is bringing education and industry together to better equip our future workforce and help employers find skilled talent sooner. So we encourage you to use the Q&A box so Ken and Darren can answer your questions live, as our goal today is to have an open discussion. Our hope is that you leave today's session having learned something new and have a tip or trick that you can walk away with and use in your own strategizing and planning. So before we dive in, a brief background on CTECS. The Career and Technical Education Consortium of States was established in 1973 and strives to close the gap between education, workforce development, and actual careers. They are the premier provider of high-quality industry-based resources and work to find connections between partners and members of their consortium, encouraging the exchange of knowledge and resources collaboratively. CTECS facilitates a complete occupational analysis system whereby data is collected from incumbent workers for the specified occupational area. This creates a vast repository of assessment and training tools that are ready, available, and for new community members. Their advantage is established by their ability to customize assessments, which we'll hear about, and services to meet individual member and partner needs. Recently, CTECS successfully ventured into the development of online curricula for middle and high school levels in areas of social emotional learning, career exploration, and workplace readiness skills. So Ken and Darren, we are so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you, Tallo team, for having us. We're delighted to be here. It's an honor to work with Tallo and be a part of your exciting workforce webinar series. And thank you all who are going to be a part of this today. We're looking forward to getting to know you better. So again, it's an honor to be here. Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, we're so excited. So I know you guys have a lot of insight and knowledge, and having been in the career and technical education space for so long, I think we'll all learn something today. So before we dive in, I know I mentioned that year, 1973, you guys have been doing career and technical education before it was a buzzword. And I gave that brief introduction, but tell us why CTECS exists and maybe where you're working right now.
Sure. Yeah. No. Thank you. We're located in Decatur, Georgia, which is we've been here since 1973, which is an urban suburb of Atlanta, Georgia. We've had 46 states in our national consortium over the years, so we're 4 shy of having all 50 be part of the consortium over the years, and we've grown and adapted like a lot of other organizations. But one thing that remains true is that we, from the very genesis of VTECS, used to be called, when the vocational word was popular, or it became CTE, Vocational Technical Education Consortium of States. And the idea is that CTECS would serve as a liaison and a community of practice. So we were kind of the linker to help states drive initiatives that really was based on how can I effectively standardize my programs of study, my standards, our assessments, our curriculum. And the answer was, going back to 1972, we followed the beginners of CTECS, the first 7 charter members, and the U.S. Air Force Training Command was based on the model of if you can be informed by what industry says, and you can follow that closely, and you can base your metrics on that, you're going to have a successful employability study at all levels. So there's a feasibility study done back in 1972 and said, hey, what if we pooled our resources together to find a common good here? And that kind of was the germination of what became CTECS. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think we're seeing such a trend back to that. Maybe it's not a new thought, but looking
Sure.
to the employer saying, what do you need? And filling backwards. So to know you've done that tried and true method, there's a way to do it. It's really helpful. So let's talk about career technical education significantly. What do you believe are the biggest challenges facing CTE educate or career and technical education today?
Sure. Well, I wish we could say that there's only a few, but there's a pretty long list, unfortunately. Obviously, I'll mention a few. There's obviously a huge teacher shortage, which we all read about, hear about. I mean, it's staggering the number of teachers that, even more so today, at the highest rate ever, are dropping out of the public education system. Now, part of that's the pandemic, as many industries have been obviously negatively impacted by it. But it's also a lack of credentials or lack of training, because jobs are changing. So as the marketplace has changed, not just because of the pandemic, but in general, you often don't have to be on the ground, educated young people from middle school on. So certainly that's a big problem. There's no easy solution there. I think more employees are involved at an earlier age, and with getting through sort of the administrative levels that are in education, it's sometimes hard. They're overtaxed to go out and find employers, so employers have to find ways to come to them and make it easier for them. And I know that's been tried a lot. So that's one issue, but let's mention a few that CTECS and certainly Tallo, we're partnering partially because of this, are involved in. One issue is, how do you track students? And when I say that is, how do you measure meaningful education and trying to figure out if students are truly prepared for the workplace, if their career preparedness is there? That is certainly a problem. CTECS has a long history, 50 plus years of having strong technical assessments, having strong programs and study around industry-based standards, having in the past 10 plus years workplace readiness skills, so that we are preparing them for those employability expectations that all employers need and demand. The question is, how do you measure how well they're doing? First, do they land those jobs with the talent seekers? And two, are they excelling in them? So I think working with Tallo to have a digital badge system and have this digital ecosystem where they can go and showcase their talent and the employers can see that, I think is key. When we tell schools about Tallo and about they can go earn our badge if they pass our tests and they use our curriculum, and they hear that employers can see that, that's a very, very attractive feature. And I think we're really excited by that. So certainly tracking students is huge. The skills gap is something we work really hard on. That's not a new problem. Our goal is, if we can couple strong technical education programs with the career readiness, we think that's a very effective way. If you can teach teamwork and teach critical thinking, for example, in the context of welding or nursing, where students were already kind of hooked to at the high school level, that's very powerful. If you can get them interested in that at the middle school age, that's a very, very powerful thing. So I think the skills gap is something that we're all working on. And lastly, I think there needs to be, and Darren, help me out with this, but more career guidance and counseling at a younger age. I know we hear all that, but how do you not overtax career counselors at an earlier age to introduce them and students to career exploration without saying you should be this or you should be that? How do you expose them to in their early age? And that's something we're working on now with our new curriculum at the middle school level.
Yeah,
so I know that's a lot.
Yeah, especially considering there's only about one counselor per about 600 students on a national average. So I think it's a problem.
Yeah. And, we talk about a lot too, not just opening students' minds, but fortunately or unfortunately, teachers, counselors, they're in a position where it's now their job to educate students on workforce jobs the second they leave the classroom. And
Absolutely.
it's different than what we've seen in the past, and it's exponentially right getting to this position. And so making sure that we're building awareness with the students, but also with the educators too. Darren, question for you about
Yeah.
when we should be talking about CTE. Is high school too late? Is middle school too early? When should these conversations start happening?
Well, it's never really too early or too late, as you know, to sharpen your skills or to just get exposure to new jobs and career paths. Although expectations when you're developing educational programs, expectations for those age groups need to be incredibly different. At the elementary level, we are only considering development mainly in the area of career pathway exposure, for instance. At the high school level, however, we have already developed a full curriculum based on teaching workplace behavioral expectations, so students can be successful as they transition, and they can get a digital badge for that. However, if we did not begin by the middle school level, we would be missing a golden opportunity, because it's at the middle school age in human development that we begin to form values and identity and hardwire our behaviors, including how we learn. That's why our career interest development course at the middle school level is focused on social and emotional learning within a career exploration context. We are linking the self to the career. The thought is make them more self-aware and expose them to more career possibilities, and they become motivated goal setters and planners. We think careers as social expression of the individual. If those align, career satisfaction ultimately rises, and that is the key. Sadly, the two biggest predictors of career choice out of high school continue to be zip code and what your family does for a living. For most, the future is much more complex than that. And we feel that if students know who they are and what they want, we can give them the tools to get there. We know Tallo would agree with this, because bringing opportunities to all, no matter rank, station, or region, is what Tallo is all about.
You just said a one-liner in there that I think I need to steal and actually written it down. What was it? Interest. The job is the way to express their interest. What was that?
Yeah, we think it's sort of the outward expression of the inner self. I think
love
the social, yeah.
Well, and I love that because we don't often talk about that, right? Exactly what you said. We talk about, oh, well, what did my mom, dad, counselor, mentor, teacher tell me? Not who am I? What am I interested in? What will I find meaning down the road in, because I found a career in it. So
right, exactly.
I'm gonna write that one-liner down.
Thanks.
It's not focused on the self. It's focused on checking a box in the system. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
let's
far,
let's stop just checking boxes.
Yeah, exactly.
And kind of in what we were talking about, educators preparing, and in that same light of getting students to follow their purpose and their meaning. We had a question come in that said, how can CTE educators better adapt to help students prepare for the real world of work? So Darren or Ken, any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I'll mention, work-based learning. I think we all talk about WBL, but that is obviously a huge national push right now. So I think if I was an educator, I would be trying to encourage young people, earlier the better, to get involved with any kind of pre-intern, any kind of career exploration program, any kind of youth apprenticeship.
Job shadowing.
Job. I mean, any way to get them into the workplace scenario. You can do it with paper and pen. You can do, with wonderful curriculum. But if they don't get some exposure, even just pure public service, I think encouraging students to have jobs. When some states you can be age 15 and work. I mean, any kind of summer employment, part-time work. I know this is all known, but the encouragement of doing that, I think, is really, really. If you couple that with the theory of doing activities, I think it's powerful, because you get real life experiences. And of course, in CTE, that's very, very powerful.
Absolutely. One question that I had that I wanted to make sure we talked about today. I I know that CTECS has a workplace readiness skills assessment. So can you tell us why that was created and how it's been used?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think the workplace readiness project or initiative came out of the impetus behind it is twofold. One, we and all of you, everyone heard students get hired because they have technical skills. Their acumen is high in a technical area. That's what CT is supposed to be teaching. Or they're academically strong. Maybe they're not doing anything at all in a particular hands-on trade, but they're very good in the classroom. But they get fired, and they certainly don't advance because they lack employability skills. And what we mean by that is pure job place etiquette, life skills. They lack the ability to relate to other people. They lack the ability to empathize and to work well with people, to think critically, to set goals for themselves, simple goals in a job place. So that was a big reason. They just didn't have those employability skills. Secondly, obviously, with Perkins 4, there was a huge push, going back one Perkins now, not Perkins 5, to say legislatively, there was a bipartisan, absolutely bipartisan push from a policy perspective to focus on employability skills for the same reasons I just mentioned. So that's kind of how we got involved, because we wanted to close the gap. So we were actually working with Virginia, the University of Virginia Weldon Cooper Center, to help on the research end of it. And then we figured out we were asked to develop an assessment behind it. So that started in Virginia in 2010. So we've been doing this in a handful of states for 12 years now. Other states like Nevada got on board, and Idaho and Maine and pockets throughout the country started using it heavily after that, once Virginia had success with it. I think it's used in different ways, because as we all know, every state operates a little differently in terms of their educational goals. In Virginia, obviously the flagship behind this, where it was birthed, you have to have an industry credential to get your standard diploma. So to graduate, literally, graduation requirement is an industry credential. Our test is heavily recognized and used as an industry credential in the Commonwealth. Other states, to get articulated credit, post-secondary credit, to get certain seals of literacy or seals of CT, or your CT acumen is high, you have to pass both the technical skills test, like in Nevada with CTECS, and you have to pass the workplace readiness test. So our side of it started in research, but really our interest was developing a strong assessment. What followed, of course, was the curriculum, which is quite recent for us.
Okay, wow, that's really good to know about Virginia. How is the assessment disseminated to the students? So I know it might follow different models in different regions, but how do people find out about it? How do they use it?
Sure. Often in the consortium at a state level, so it's I don't know if I'd say mandated. So we have a website, but there's a test site administrator and a proctor assigned to it. You can do everything through our online system, including the curriculum. So we have kind of a coordinator at the state level who works with different regions. And then, of course, when people find out about it, like in the case of Virginia, and it becomes well known, it becomes kind of a local push. So we'll have principals call and say, I need to satisfy this for graduation requirement, or I need help remediating, or maybe it's not even about graduation. It's just we have students who are strong in the technical side or academically, but they are not doing well with employability skills, and we need help there. So it varies. Usually it starts at the top with the state. For us, it's been, but we now have local and regional interests where schools aren't even a part of the consortium, but they find out about it and they want to disseminate by word of mouth. So we send out newsletters, we use Survey Monkeys, so on to get basically marketing that way.
Yeah, a question came in while you were saying that, and I think you just answered it, but how can schools become partnered with CTECS? Do they have to be a part of the consortium to use the assessment?
Absolutely not. They can use the curriculum, and that's middle school and high school, and they can use our technical skills assessment and our workplace readiness test. We have a badge, we have a system. They do not have to be formally part of the consortium. Of course, it's about relationship building. So we're not really, we're not a canned test provider that just sells tests for the purpose of selling tests. We want it to be a meaningful relationship and program to where there is some accountability behind it, obviously. We vet all our questions. We work hard to update them all the time. I talked about this Air Force model going back to post-World War II. We have a very strict system of rigor that we have to follow to make sure we're constantly revalidating what the industry says we need to be in touch with. You never want a test or standards to sit out there for years and not be looked at. That's really important. But yes, you're more than welcome just to get involved directly with us. We have our contacts, I'm sure, and our CTECS.org website has all the information to get involved. So there's no pressure to join is really what I'm trying to say.
I love it. Well, and you just kind of segued into another question that's coming in. So going back to the mindset of, okay, we're developing standards, we're working on curriculum, we're putting assessments out, badging, credentialing for employers, right? Ultimately, we're getting them into those jobs. So the question is, what advice do you have for employers looking to connect and recruit students that have passed the WRS?
Well, there's obviously the obvious answer is to get involved, but the trick is, how do you get involved? What is the most effective way to get involved? And I think I mentioned, I know I mentioned now, work-based learning earlier. If I were an employer looking to recruit or to get involved with a young talent pool, particularly at secondary education and some post-secondary as well, I would not only make myself known in terms of the career pathways we have, I would make it attractive. I would incentivize, meaning I would present a very transparent way at the school level. Because again, schools do not have time from an administrative logistical standpoint alone to go out and form technical advisory committees and try and make all these partnerships. There was a very short window in the history of education to do that, and it is not in today's world at all. There's just too much going on. We all know that from an educator standpoint. So getting involved and being leaders, not just saying I want to be on your committees, going in and introducing your programs. And I'm talking pay, I'm talking training programs, I'm talking interns, I'm talking scholarships, going into the schools, not just career days, but actually locking yourself into that school system so that principals get it. Because if the leaders of the schools and the parents don't know about it, you're not going to make an impact. You may hover and get close, but you're not really going to get in to the flesh of the school. And I think that's absolutely important. And I think promoting and recognizing these credentials, saying, yes, I know about Tallo. I like what's coming out of Tallo. I know about its workplace readiness badge. I know it's testing students at a minimum baseline, bottom line ability to recognize job place behaviors. So if I were an employer and I could endorse that and I could get behind it with the young people, I think that's very, very powerful. I mean, you can do CTSOs, you can get involved in a lot of committees, but I think work-based learning and presenting why someone would want to come work for you or get involved in your career path is right there for them.
Yep, I agree. Opening the curtains, right? Show what's behind the curtain. Odds are high school kids, they're driving past your facility every day. They're going past your office every day. Family members are going inside and working. Still, those conversations don't happen about what that means and how things take place. I have a lot of conversations right now, right? If you're in trucking and supply chain and manufacturing and you're not talking to these young students about the supply chain crisis we're having right now, you're missing that opportunity to talk about the career they can get in. So yeah, I absolutely agree with you there, Ken. What do you think the top employability skills are right now, or even though knowing that you guys are so geographically dispersed, is there one or two skills that always come up and always really stick out from the employer's perspective?
That's tough. Darren, you might have a little insight. The only thing I would say is
integrity.
Yeah.
I would say that's number one overall, honestly. Work ethic is also a very big one. Creativity is moving up in the world as far as a recognizable universal skill that we want people to have, especially when it comes to problem solving. Teamwork is sort of a fundamental understood idea, but conflict resolution within teamwork, I think, customer service skills, things like this, they're all embedded. Yeah, it's all embedded within our 22 main standards for workplace readiness skills.
Yeah, and it's all of the 22 or whatever career list you're following for career preparedness. But it sounds funny, but continuous learning, meaning young people are curious. The question is, how do you tap into the curiosity so that they're not just talking about things on the internet or the coursework they have to go through? How do you get them thinking about how they can impact society? How can they contribute? They want to contribute, but they often don't have a channel to do that. So I think it's not an exact skill, but I think fostering that curiosity is really, really, really important. Part of that's creativity and innovation.
Yep, I agree. We are running out of time very quickly. A fun question came in, or fun might not be the right word, but I'm just really curious here. Your thoughts, both of you, each of you. How do you feel the pandemic has impacted career and technical education amongst education and amongst students? Ken, I'll start with you.
Well, I think in a initially a negative way. I think we found out from a teaching counseling perspective, from the educator side, and the same for the student side, is that I'm not going to say virtual learning doesn't work, but I think we found out it's really, really difficult to teach certainly hands-on skills or things like mathematics or world languages. I think they're really hard to teach virtually. But I think the good news is we learn to find sometimes a happy medium between when technology and the tools with it gets more innovative, gets more creative. You can use technology to bridge some of those gaps. I mean, you don't always have to be there in person. So I think it has taught people how to balance the need in the workplace and in the schools, whether you're a student or a teacher or an industry employer looking for someone. It's taught people how to balance proper use of technology and virtual learning with being there in person. I think that's been a positive outcome that's come out of it.
For me, I've been kind of excited by the SEL response, or the social and emotional learning, because it's such a need. There's quite an opportunity for a response, meaning students are experiencing missed school days, experiences of illness and loss, increased stress, and reduced social infrastructure and interactions, really. And I just read in a recent report from the Advisor of Youth Mental Health that the U.S. Surgeon General is calling for a priority on SEL to promote healthy development. And we know that SEL will be a key to supporting mental wellness and accelerating learning, actually.
Yeah, it definitely has come out of the pandemic, but I'm glad we're talking about it, right?
Yeah.
So in true fashion, the 30 minutes has just flown by. Ken and Darren, thank you so much for joining us today. I know Alexa's going to put up a slide for us that has your contact information and my contact information as well. While she does that, any closing remarks, Ken or Darren, that you'd like to share?
Thank you for having us. I'll let Ken go.
Yeah. No, I just, again, it was our pleasure, and we look forward to hopefully building some positive momentum relationships out of this. And obviously we look forward to our continued partnership with Tallo. So on behalf of CTECS, thank you.
Yes, thank you. We are certainly thrilled to partner with you guys and love to see the work that you're doing and the lives you're changing and the impact you're making. So thanks for joining us today. Thanks for attending and joining our session, for everyone that signed on to learn more about CTECS. So we should have some more sessions headed your way. So please stay in touch. We'll let you know as those get scheduled. And thanks again to the CTECS team. Everybody take care.
Thank you.
Take care now. Bye-bye. Thank you.